Hello, it's Michael, and it's week 7. So we're getting close to the end of the course, and yet it seems, probably from your explorations, maybe you've kind of wondered, like, when are we actually going to get to something that looks a little bit more familiar in terms of an organization of a website or something of that sort? And that's this week. So we're going to do it this week. This week's goal is wireframing, and I want to let you know the point of these modules and the discussion here is not only to just give you some tips about what things mean, but this is sort of the why, explaining why do we need wireframes. And I think it's very important to go ahead and read through this just so you get that good feeling for why are we going through this exercise. And if you, as you've hopefully understood now from the class, the class is trying it out, the how. The how can be very idiosyncratic, it can be personal, and there's a lot of different opportunities. That's why we keep it pretty loose, and we're going to share quite often. And I do hope that everyone is, by the way, looking at everyone else's work, because that's really important, especially as we get to this part. Now, many times I can say, for example, in this sketch here, I started with a wireframe, and I really didn't have much thought of how you would actually construct this. I was really more trying to understand what would be of value to a customer. But retrofitting a database to a HTML architecture to going backwards is actually very costly. So I hope you're understanding that the reason why we start with data is that going backwards in this is just very difficult to do. It's much more easier to triage and adjust than it is to, hey, here's this fantastic idea, now let's go build it. So please do use this to give yourself why are we doing wireframes? And I'll just go do a little bit of review. So we talked about nouns and verbs. Language and the words that you use are extremely important, as you've probably seen. We even started with just in our database, what are the column names? What data do we have? What does that data mean? Those are very critical questions to ask as you're building information architecture. It's much like any architect understanding how to keep buildings from falling over. How do nails work? How do screws work? These are just the things that you understand at a fundamental level so that you can build. And the words, I think this week, most of you were able to see that there's sort of two different flavors. Once you're taking data and putting it on a page, you're going to want to have the ability for the person to manipulate that data. So that's fine. Those are sorting, filtering, putting things in tables, perhaps. By the way, it was completely deliberate that we went through this. So if you did one of these and you didn't look at the others, please do, because this was something to prepare you for this week when you're going to have to understand navigation models and you're going to have to demonstrate them. So please refer back to here to understand which navigation models you're going to want to use, because the main idea here is the language around your HTML plus the language of a taxonomy, which is maybe those vast, bigger sets of words that help narrow down and group things together. I think we talked about, a group could be fiction, nonfiction, not super useful, or it could be crime, thriller, young adult. You can get into a longer list, but this week, verbs was how do you get around and actually help fulfill some user goal. And many of you did a great job. I'm not saying you didn't. I just know that this top level here is very creative, because one thing, once you start putting things on a page, you start to run out of room. And that's why we also talked a little bit about mobile. Like, there's just not a lot of room to do things in. And also, I wanted to make sure I just had a couple of examples, just because as you're exploring it, I see things in a different way. Just thought, here's a really interesting way to organize at a high level the different kinds of experiences in Airbnb. And I think I was reading this book that said, what movie do you want to watch based on the outcome? Super interesting. So I'm looking this week in wireframes to be able to depict that for feedback. And so you're going to take your content, your structure, you're going to put it all together and have some sort of navigation at the top level and maybe navigation on a secondary level. And also in this week, we're going to talk a little bit. I'd like to see bits of the taxonomy. I'd certainly love to see navigation, how that works. And the good thing is that you just have to do one sketch and or demonstration of this. And we'll iterate on it as we do to get feedback from. So in this actual profession, you might have difficulty, by the way, showing your stakeholders a sitemap. They might look at it and say, that seems fine. It's usually only till it gets to the page level that people actually can connect to some of the decisions you've made, especially when it comes to your HTML and your hierarchy. I will look at your records and try to think, are you actually representing your HTML structure properly? Now, you were just getting used to HTML, so I'm not going to hold this to hold your feet to the fire on this. But you can see now you've actually made the decisions of how to display things. You're just kind of filling in the details as to what it actually looks like. And so anyway, yeah, so here's some other ideas as how you can, there's also some great things if you're in this business, you can take your Airtable and you can actually connect it to a drawing and in Figma. Oh, by the way, we're using Figma for this. You're welcome to use a piece of paper if you want. I mean, that is good if you can be a little nice and neat about your lettering. But this is just the idea that you can take your data and you can plug it into different kinds of structures and it'll just repeat it for you and it'll move to the next record because that's the repetition. There's going to be so much repetition at this point. That's also why we're building from the ground up, because all these structures may, again, just repeat and repeat and repeat, and you want to get it right. You don't have to do this, by the way. As I said, a piece of paper is fine as long as you're getting your point across and telling me how these things relate to and what extra things you may need to make your content understandable. You'll probably get to, and this will be more for next week, because remember, we're only still at the information phase, We have not gotten to knowledge or wisdom. We're not even close, unfortunately. One thing you will start to see is the biggest puzzle of all, which is sort order. So if you have a bunch of records on a page, in what order are you sorting them? It might make your head hurt a little bit to think about that one. But I might mention it just to let you know. And as I said, this week is just to explore and to do the how. How do we do this? There should be plenty of room here to share as well. So one thing we did see in last week's, if you do share something, it's really nice to export your picture from Figma and put it here. And if you do want to change something, I'll just let you know that that's not too bad. If we do comment on something, let's just comment here really quick. Okay, and you wanted to replace this sticky note, you can sort of just detach your comment, delete the sticky note, or delete the picture is what I mean, and add a different picture, and then just sort of move this back. I know it seems a little bit silly, but if you're worried about that, it's better than maybe having confusion over versioning, because we will change things, hopefully a lot, and I'm happy to give you guys feedback. So hope this week goes well. Thanks.